In this video, I'm going to talk to you about something that it took me a while to realize that has been one of the main problems that have been making me feel unnatural when I interact with people, when I think, in general, in living my life. And that is, I locked in having my own rhythm in experiencing life, in interacting with life. What's happening is that pretty much most uh, of us are not really dancing to our own rhythm because of how our parents have raised us, uh, environmental circumstances, let's say which country you come from, or society, or city, or uh, the environment at home. Then school gets you over there. They set their own rhythm, which has to do with how at the time the intellectuals in that system believe is the best way to create a productive, decent human being. And of course this does change in this way or another way. And by the time you start to amass enough skills where you could say, okay, now things should be working out, they're not working out the way they should. And this is because you have adopted a rhythm which is not yours. In some cases it might come close, but it will never be as efficient as if you actually are truly yourself. And in society, for example, there are so many things that are kind of nudging you to go by this rhythm or that rhythm, which has nothing to do with who you are. And this is why you're always pretending, you're mimicking something. And there is certain unnaturalness that comes out of this pretending, that it goes against the grain of who you are. And when we look at some great individuals out there that have become successful, let's say in acting or in whatever art or in business or in politics, athletics, they've achieved this because they've discovered that natural rhythm by which their being is able to express itself in an effortless way. And when I say effortless, I don't necessarily mean that these individuals do not experience difficulties and pain, but it's one of these hardships that they willingly go into and they can't get enough of it. And this is what every human being should try to discover. I think it was Jerry Seinfeld who said once that the key to success is to find the hell you're comfortable in and just run with it. And I think this is what he was referring to. So I'll give you some examples. Have you noticed that often people will rush you into giving them an answer? Hey, do you want to go and do this and this, or do you want to buy this, or and they're kind of exacting an answer from you right away. And if you think about it, for most of these social interactions, you don't actually have to commit to an answer within the time limit that either this individual is trying to sell to you as a standard, or he is using a sort of an average standard that is popular in society. But there's nothing really that gives legitimacy to this standard. And the first time I kind of get a hint of this is when I start meeting some very rare individuals who all they did was like, they said, let me think about it. And when they said that, I didn't feel that I was robbed by not having an answer right away, unless it was something urgent, of course. And most of the social interactions are not urgent. Most of our social interactions are, I'm trying to get you involved into let's say a story that I'm going by, and I say, hey, you want to be an actor in this story? I need that. And most of the time there's no urgency to that. But now what has happened over the history of the social evolution is that many of us are beginning to rush people into committing. And the reason why we are rushing them is not because the story needs to tell itself within the next 2 days. It is because we are kind of trying to overload the individuals that we're trying to lure into that story. And this overloading is making them weaker and handicapped, and therefore we can manipulate the story to go in our own way. Something that it's quite natural, right? I've done it. I'm sure all of you have done it, and as you're listening to this, maybe some examples are starting to pop up in your heads. It's almost like when a con artist, is rushing into making a decision. These guys that are calling you and they're offering you great opportunities, but you have to act now. And this is because they don't want you to actually engage into the interaction in a natural way, in going back to that rhythm that you are yourself. They want to appeal to your greed or to your fear or to your sort of lazy side of committing without thinking. And going to the other side of you, let's say, being the victim of that, is you shouldn't put up with that. And you will eventually, of course, start noticing that some people are becoming a little bit irritated by your rhythm of responding to things. But this should maybe be a sign that these people are playing that game that I mentioned a few minutes ago, which is they're trying to have an absolute control of the story, and they're rushing everybody else in a way that they're creating these emergencies, now or never, in view to having absolute control of other individuals. So don't put up to this. An experiment. See if I'm wrong or right on this. Of course, there are certain situations when, yes, you need to be quick and you need to commit and not linger forever and never make a decision, which is another, of course, issue for another video. But yeah, start working on this, and you'll see that life feels a lot more, I would say, less scary. You see that most of the time you don't actually even need to do anything for many of these pokes that you're getting from so many different people. And you will become a lot more calm individual. And I'm not, again, advocating you being the kind of individual that never commits to anything, but understand that these standards of time are pretty much the desires of other people. They have nothing to do with how actually life unravels itself. I'm gonna give you a little silly example. I'm sure all of you have experienced this. You go through something, and only later you find out that this event was bigger than what you've recorded. And you start to, let's say, it hurts you in a way. You had an interaction with somebody, let's say, this is an example for the guys. Let's say you go to a party and it's loud and, and busy, and you introduce to somebody, to another couple, let's say, and it's a 5-minute conversation, and then you and your girlfriend go back to interacting with other people, and then 2 years later you find out that, let's say, your girlfriend, wife, has been cheating with that guy, and this is not the first time she meets him, that they've known each other and they've been having an affair for years before that. And then you start reflecting on this 5 minutes, and you're starting to realize that there was all sorts of signs that you should have noticed in the way your wife or girlfriend was interacting with this guy, that at the time you didn't notice. And this is because you were going into a different rhythm, different assumptions of what this interaction is. We're just meeting these new people, we never met them before, and you're puzzled by how you're able 2 years later to remember these details that at the time you didn't notice. Suddenly these 5 minutes become of 50 minutes of information, subtle movements, things that was said that at the time didn't really mean anything to you, besides they've just been said because we just met these people and so on. It's part of the sort of the social standard, how you interact with somebody you just met. And if you are somebody who is able to master his own rhythm, when you're having this kind of interactions, you're going to realize that you're going to start perceiving a lot more than what the average individual can perceive from simple interactions. And this is when you're going to actually start noticing that people have these stories that I talked about, that they're trying to engage you in, and they're very dedicated to, not necessarily on a conscious level. This sort of is going on a subconscious level, and you're gonna start detecting these things and realize that, like I said, you don't have to do many of this. Yeah? You don't have to do anything about many of these kind of invitations of say yes or no, please, right now. Otherwise, whatever the otherwise is, as a sort of threat or whatever. And you're like, no, I don't have to do this. So that's one example that if you reflect on it, you will see that you had many of these situations where you wished that you could have taken it slower in how you were interacting, and especially how you were responding to the situation. And the fact that you're able to do what I just described years after the event should lead you to believe that this personality that I'm saying that you should build, which is a natural personality, going by its natural rhythm, it is already in you. It's just that these other rhythms that society and systems and certain circumstances in the environment you grew in have suppressed it, have masked it. They do not allow it to surface, and it only surfaces under very special circumstances. Like in the previous example, you're hurt from your wife, let's say, cheating with this guy, and this is when, let's say, if there is some kind of a inner managing mechanism of different personality, says that's it, these sort of borrowed rhythms or personalities are not working. We just paid the price, therefore we're gonna go at something else, and that is the natural personality. So temporarily this personality takes over and you become very honest with yourself. And my advice to you is to find that honesty, to find that natural rhythm, natural personality, and also not just look forward to the benefits of it, but also the price you're gonna pay for it. For example, you're gonna pay some social price when you're able to analyze things so well of what really is going on. You lose your naivety to engage into certain stories, certain social games that maybe you should engage once in a while. Otherwise, you become one of those individuals that are so shrewd and so good at catching people as manipulators and liars that you're not able to anymore enjoy a lie or manipulation. Like, for example, again, I'll talk to the guys here, but this goes for women as well. You won't be able to enjoy anything romantic either, because a lot of it is an illusion, mimicking of something, but it's the kind of illusion that we enjoy. My point is for you to find a natural balance of how much of it you want to enjoy, and you're not gonna. And the only way to arrive at this balance is to first start experimenting with the things that I've discussed in this video, and realize that you cannot go extreme on that either, because then you're robbing yourself from being able to enjoy any story but your own story. And this is something that you should be careful with.